Welcome to the Chad and Chong Podcast, where we talk about performance, production, and everything in between. I'm Chad.
And I'm Chong.
And welcome to episode 3.
Nice, man.
Wow, we made it. 3 weeks. That's like a long time.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And today's topic is
maintaining longevity in music.
See that segue there?
Yeah,
That's
that was good.
huh?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about how to maintain a career in music. More specifically, how to keep it going, which is the word longevity, how to have longevity here, how to not burn bridges, how to not burn out. So one of the things that I think is important to talk about when you're maintaining longevity is understanding that we chose music because this is what we're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And this is what we love to do, and we find joy in doing this. But, you know, oftentimes when passion becomes a job or your work, you know, because you have to, and you have to take maybe the gig that you don't necessarily want to because you still have bills to pay.
Yeah.
And you keep doing that can get kind of old, and you might even get burned out, and you might even lose the passion or the joy for it in a while. You know, why don't we talk about that and what are some things that we can do to kind of replenish ourselves or to make sure that we still have that joy and that passion that to keep us going.
Yeah. For most musicians that we know that in our circle, I'd say 95% of them all play at church. As soon as they're done touring, or if doing one-offs, they come back home, and on Sunday they're at church, whatever church that might be. I found, at least for myself, the best decisions that I made, believe it or not, is I'm never at one location every single week. Like on a Sunday, I have my home church in Chino, Reliance Community Church. I've been there for the past almost 8 years now, but I spoke with my pastor initially, and I told him, man, like, look, here's the deal. Like, I do music full time. There's opportunities that I get to play with other musicians that can possibly get me more work. It makes it sound like I'm just becoming friends with people because of what they can offer me. But when you and I first met, it was just kind of like the chemistry was already there. I think even before, like we were able to, our sarcasm's very similar, so it wasn't hard. So for me, like trying to connect with people, I try my best to make people feel as comfortable as possible, So when we're talking, outside of music, it's just like, okay, how can I relate to this person? What if they're Latino, I already know where to hit them. It's with the food, with the Spanish language, if it's about music, okay, what type of music are you into? And then I identify, oh, you listen to this artist. Oh, okay, cool. I'm into that artist too, so you create conversation, and so I remember I would tell my pastor, I was like, you know what, like, I want to be able to have the opportunity to go out and play at different churches and just be able to go out and play because, obviously I'm a freelance musician, and so I got to continue working, and that means, I need to consistently expand my circles when I get the opportunities, So for me, it might be different from other people. I don't know, but at least for myself, I've never felt that instance of when people tell me, man, I feel burned out, like is this, like, I've been doing this, I haven't stopped for the last 6 months, and I'm just at the same location every week, and I could get why that can get a little bit tiresome and monotonous, But at the same time, I think that's what worked for me. I don't know how I would suggest it to other people because I don't want them leaving their regular thing or their regular church, But that's what worked for me. What about you? Like, what do you find has worked for you over the years?
Man, it's funny because we really are similar in a sense.
And by the way, we're finding out a lot about each other
about ourselves
in
these podcasts. Yeah. No, I mean, I was thinking about how I'm going to answer it while you're answering it, but the reality is, if you know me, you know that I wear a lot of hats and I do a lot of things. I mean, I play guitar, drums, bass, keys. I produce music. I'm a studio engineer. I'm a tracking engineer. I mix, I master.
Yeah.
I also do live. I do live sound. And for those who really, really know me, also know that I used to tour manage, and I used to be a production manager, and I was a tech director. And now that I think about it, it all makes sense. It's not that I get bored of one thing really fast, but I just have such a fascination as to how things work.
Yeah.
And so for me, especially now that I'm with my girlfriend, Michelle, again, it started when I was young and my dad taking me to different churches and just hearing the live show, right? since I was working music so much and doing the gigs, I never actually got to go and watch the shows. You know, and I mentioned my girlfriend Michelle now, who, you know, she intentionally tries to get us out to go see live music.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, that's one thing. And she can attest to this, that when we're at concerts, I'm observing everything. I go, oh, look at those speakers. Oh, can you see where the subs are? Oh, look at those lights. Hey, try to find the, you know, the mixed position. You know, it's literally like sometimes we're walking at the mall, like at the Grove in LA, and you hear music playing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if Michelle likes that I've done this to her, but I'd go, hey, Michelle, where's the speakers? And she'd go, right there by the bush over there. And I was like, okay, yeah, good job. Or we go Universal Studios City Walk. I don't know if you know this, but there's speakers all across there, and they're blending in. They're blended into the facade.
I didn't know that.
And they're painted. And I literally go, all right, Michelle, where's the speaker? She's like, right there by Johnny Rockets. What color? White. Cool. Oh, well, where's the subwoofer? She's like, right there, above Sephora. And, you know, so
that's so good, man.
But that's just my curiosity.
Yeah.
And so with that, I'm at a concert, and, you know, say it was just a phenomenal sounding concert. I'm researching everything.
Yeah.
What kind of sound system was it? Who was the front of house engineer?
Right.
You know, say there was another concert, the bassist was just killing it. I go, who was that bassist? What kind of bass does he have? You know, and then I'll be totally immersed in bass, and it just goes from thing to thing to thing. And I just fully immerse myself, so that I never actually get burnt out or lose my passion for it.
For sure.
I'm always inspired when I go see somebody else.
Right.
You know, and so I think for me that's actually really huge, because there was a time where, you know, especially when you're on tour, right? It's like, oh, it's the same set. It's the same song.
Right.
You play it six nights in a row.
Yeah.
And it becomes automatic, you know, sad to say, you know, and some of these songs have so much meaning, and you realize, oh man, you're playing to a whole bunch of different people every night.
Yeah.
And it's their first time seeing you, but you're always like, hey, yeah, it's you know, it's GCDC every single night, you know, but I think being able to step away for a little bit and enjoying, you know, why you got into music in the first place, which is, you know, taking in that experience, you know, is really one of the key things for me, and how I keep enjoying and not burning out.
Yeah, I think all those elements, man, are really important. You know, along with that too is just maintaining the relationships that you gain along the way.
Yeah.
Right. You know, like you have to be very intentional with the people that you meet, that you know are doing what you want to do, or you know, if they're in that circle already, or you know, you try and meet the people that can get you in the direction that you want to go.
Right.
You know, that's very, very important. Like it's not that you're trying to be, a pest or some type of annoyance to them. It's just you have a genuine curiosity, right, to pursue music at the highest level. And so you try to look at, okay, well, who are the people that are achieving and playing for these artists and doing these things? Like, how can I get into that circle? We, you know, Chad and I always have these discussions about who's on, you know, which tour. Oh, well, this drummer's swapping out with this drummer because he's gonna, you know, he's playing for this other artist and he's gonna do this run instead of that, you know. And so it's always interesting because it can change very fast. You know, you jump from one gig to the other and it's a completely different style of music. It could be from trap to rock, you know, and it all depends on your versatility. That's why it's so important to make, you know, when you're talking about being a musician, you want to be an all-around musician. You know, we haven't really touched on this. How important is at least learning the basics of reading music?
Oh man. Yeah, that's something we definitely haven't talked about. I think I got this from one of your podcasts actually back in the days, but it's basically about understanding the language, right? And when you're learning a new language, you know, there's many different ways of learning it, right? You speak it, you hear it,
right,
you engage in conversation, but also you're reading and writing. And so, you know, I think the importance of reading music, especially now, and I wasn't always like this. I again, like most of my upbringing was just by ear.
Yeah, exactly.
But especially being in the studio and getting a lot of last minute calls where you don't have rehearsal.
Right.
You know, you're
there's
just
no MP3s or no.
There's no MP3s. You're flying to the next destination and you don't even get the music in advance. You just have to show up and basically, you know, be able to sight read.
Yeah.
I think it's super key, and you're handicapping yourself if you don't learn just the basics.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I'm talking, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a drummer or you play something with, you know, with melodic notes and things. Like, you have to at least understand the basics,
right,
and be able to communicate, because if you're only just, you know how to play by ear, you're missing a whole nother way of communicating with other musicians and artists.
That's good, man. Growing up, everything was by ear. I never wanted to, not that I didn't want to learn, but I just didn't get the opportunity to do so. And really I was more exposed to it when I started going to school. And then I was like, oh, everybody's sight reading here. All of our classes, drum rudiments, all that. On sheet music, and so I was like, okay, I have to at least, hone in on rhythm charts, and it's your roadmap, and honestly, it saves you so much time.
Oh, yeah.
If they send you a list of songs and you have to learn it within 2 days, and it's 10, 15 songs, trying to memorize, even if they're short tunes, 2-3 minutes each. There's intricate things that sometimes MDs want you to do, on the gig, and so it's so much easier when you can just pick up one of your iPads or something and notate something. It's like, here's a kick pattern for the verse, here's a kick pattern for the chorus, here's a pattern for the bridge. Everything is different, and you're talking about doing that for each song. So you are kind of limiting yourself, from expanding your possibilities and the opportunities that you might get if you don't take the time at least to learn the basics of reading music. Yeah. So that's a little side tangent, but I did want to bring that up.
And it makes sense. Yeah. Actually, that's another key to longevity. I remember from your podcast again, Teddy Campbell speaking on this.
Man. Yeah.
And if you guys know, look up Teddy Campbell, phenomenal drummer. He grew up in Chicago in the church as well and just played music. But it wasn't until he moved over here and got the call from Ricky Minor that, again, he was already an accomplished drummer and all that.
Yeah.
But he couldn't take that next step until, he learned how to read.
Yeah.
The moment he applied himself and he read, he pretty much became the number one on-call drummer for almost all the TV shows, a lot of scoring sessions, a lot of films, a lot of studio sessions, and that's a key to longevity in this industry is growing.
Yeah.
And if you're a musician, you most likely didn't start off reading music unless you're classically trained or something. So I'd say most of us probably by ear. However, you don't want to stay there. That's one way to not have longevity. And it's one way to actually cut your career short is by not applying, learning how to read to your own skill set.
Yeah. It's challenging at first. I'll say that. It's a new language like anything. It takes a lot of time and you want to spend as much as you can really trying to learn it, because once you do, it's just so valuable. Talking about Teddy, one of the stories he shared was when he went to go play with Ricky. It was one of the first times. Ricky already knew he couldn't read.
He couldn't read, right.
But he just wanted to see him play and see how he could follow and all these things. And so at the end of the session, Ricky was nice enough, if you don't know who Ricky Minor is, I mean, this guy has MD'd the biggest of the biggest shows, American Idol. He's done the Grammys, the Oscars. Yeah. He's been one of the goats of music directing for such a long time. And so he told Teddy at the end of the session, he's like, hey man, look, I know you don't know how to read. He's like, I'm being honest. I can tell you don't know how to read. He's like, you got to work on that. He's like, you're going to lose opportunities, not just with me, but with any other sessions you might be able to get, And I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing what Teddy said, but it's along those lines. It's just like, you just don't know what call you might get. And it just puts you ahead of everybody. It's just like, okay, I can't memorize it, but at least I can read the chart. Right. It's like, okay, well, here's an advantage that a lot of drummers might not have. And it might be that extra thing that gives you that gig over somebody else. One of the important things when it comes to maintaining relationships, we were talking about making sure that they know that you're around. And when I say they, I'm talking about the people that you're trying to work with, right? If you work with a music director once or an artist once, and you build some type of relationship with them, let's say you get their number, their Instagram, their email, it's your job, your duty to follow up. Even if you might not have another gig with them for another 2 or 3 months, you don't want it to be that out of sight, out of mind deal. Can you expand on that? Like how important you think that is?
Yeah, absolutely. And the term that comes to mind that you want to be in is top of mind. And especially when you think about the tools that we have today, like social media, posting on your stories, constantly posting something. The reality is, we haven't touched on it a lot, but this industry is all about networking and relationship. And for the top dogs, they're so busy. They have so many things happening. And to be honest, there's not enough people to actually fulfill the work. So this notion that, there isn't enough work for everybody is totally false. And that's something we could touch on later where some musicians feel like it's a competition.
Right.
When really, when you think about, there's almost 7 billion people in the world. almost every single person consumes music in one way, shape, form, or another.
Right.
And there's probably not even 100,000 musicians.
Wow.
Especially in the pop world.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, but having those relationships with the right people is really important.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about top of mind, it's constantly advertising yourself.
Yeah.
And constantly marketing yourself. I know as musicians, we hate that word, marketing, because we're creatives and all we want to do is create.
Yeah.
We just want to play music. We just, want to go on the gigs and that's all, and just immerse ourselves in that. But the reality is, we are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And we are our own businesses.
Right.
And if we're not advocating for ourselves, who is?
Exactly. That's
good. And
good.
The reality is, even for me on Instagram, it's the fall right now, and it's pumpkin season. If you're a Starbucks person, and yes, I'm basic, but I do love my pumpkin cream cold brew, and I honestly have one about every single day.
Oh my god!
I just keep posting it.
Yeah.
On my story.
Aren't people hitting you up about it?
Oh man, I mean the amount of people, musicians and non-musicians, hitting me up about it, and even tagging me. People are tagging me on their gig. Here's my pumpkin cream cold brew. I'm on their mind because now they're associating with my pumpkin cream cold brew, right? You could literally apply that to anything.
Sure.
So, I remember a couple years back, or right at the beginning of COVID, me and another buddy, we just kept posting drums. And, I don't consider myself a professional drummer. I could lay a beat if I need to, but I would start getting hit up to do drum gigs. And not just like drum gigs, but drum maintenance, drum recommendations.
Wow.
Where can I buy DW versus Yamaha versus Pearl? What do you think of this? Because I literally would just, take pictures of drums.
Yeah.
And so when people start looking at your stories and, social media presence and all that, what you put out there is what's going to be on the top of people's minds.
Right.
So if you want to be hired as a drummer, a versatile drummer, I'd be posting something, playing some Latin groove one day, some gospel groove the next day,
that's good.
some acoustic folk the next day.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you never know who's watching you.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen, they might be in a bind or they need a drummer and they're going to be like, I saw somebody post that he had a 24-inch 1970s Ludwig kick and I need that. Who was that? Oh, that was Kevin Chong. So those are some strategies and things to think about, top of mind. And that's really a strategy that I think works in our favor. And it's really, take advantage of it. Because 20 years ago, this did not exist.
Oh, man, yeah.
You literally had to pick up your landline phone
right.
and call studios and call MDs and call producers and be like, hey, I'm available for gigs, or what do you need me for?
Right. It's your online business card.
Yeah.
When you're posting, it's very important to consider some of the things that social media encompasses. Great video and good audio. When you're posting these videos and trying to share your gift, with the world, make sure it looks and sounds good. One of the conversations we've had, man, the last couple of weeks is playing with click.
Yeah.
If a drummer's posting a clip with click in it, that's the first thing I'm listening for. What time signature are we in? And then where's that click at? And where do you fall on that click? Are you ahead? Are you behind? Or are you right dead center? As of late, in your church setting and some of the gigs you've been doing, you've been paying attention more to that. Why is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, we do so many things, right? Church is one of the things that we do as musicians. However, I am a producer. I'm also a music director. I own my own studio. And the reality is, when you post it, I'm watching it.
Yeah.
That's a win for you because you've already got my attention.
Right.
However, what you don't know is, you want to present yourself in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And so that means, paying attention to really what you're posting.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at you. I know you're a drummer. Great. That's fantastic. Can you play to a click? Studio is notorious. You need to play to a click no matter what.
No matter what. Exactly.
If I hear that you're a little bit off already and it just derails the song, I'm most likely just gonna move on. I'm gonna swipe up, scroll up, and move on. If you play right on the click, if you play so appropriate to the song, I'm most likely going to hit you up, or I'm thinking of you in the future.
Yeah.
And this happens a lot. And Kevin, you know this because, when I think of, a pop gig, whether it's huge or not, I know you're a professional. and I used to watch your videos that you would post up, and then we played live together, and so whatever you post, I know that it represents you because you've also delivered.
Yeah.
So it's really important to think about those things, not just, playing with a click, the tone, like you said, audio is really important.
Right.
I tried to record myself playing drums the other day and realized my camera recorded in mono, but my in-ear mix was stereo. That bugged the crap out of me because it did not represent what I was hearing in my ears.
Sure.
And so, I did all that work, edited it and everything, but I'm not going to post it. Why? Because it's going to be actually degrading to me and my brand, because it just wasn't recorded properly.
Yeah.
So, it's important to understand that, again, what you put out there, people are going to judge you, and in a good way, because you want them to come at you and hit you up because you're putting out an excellent product.
Yeah.
So whatever you do, always try to put excellence out there.
A lot of these artists, believe it or not, man, they're checking Instagrams these days, and they want to see what you're going to bring to the table within the first 3 rows, right, of the Instagram feed. So if the first 3 rows is just all food or just something unrelated to music, if you're trying to do music for a living and, you want to really push your social media, nobody's going to know that's what you do, and nobody's going to care because it's like, okay, well, that food looks good, but it doesn't show me that you can play. It's also important to, try to post the gig that you're doing and also the gig that you want to try to get. If you're saying to your friends, hey, man, I would love to be on a pop gig. All right, cool. Send me some of your stuff on Instagram. And you send me a church video, or you send me you playing country music or something unrelated to pop. How can I know
it doesn't align?
Yeah, that you can play. You can assure me you might be a great drummer at that style. But, not everybody is proficient in every style of music. So that's why it's so important. Like, okay, one day here you're posting, a pop gig. The other day is a church thing. The next day it's a Latin gig. The fourth day is some jazz. Even if you're attempting it, who cares? As long as you're posting something that's worth watching and worth listening to. I think that's very important, because after all, again, Instagram these days is your online business card, and what you present there goes out into the world. Anybody can see it.
One of the other things about maintaining longevity that I feel like has not been talked about a lot or even at all, if that is health, your physical health.
Yeah.
I remember I actually was fortunate enough to take a tour at Fox Studios, 20th Century Fox, where they do movies, and I was in the sound department, and these guys are all working on the audio for big movies and things like that. And I noticed a lot of them were really fit. And these guys were in their mid 40s or 50s. And we got to pick out their brains a little bit. And, I remember specifically this one guy, and this was actually at Warner Brothers. And we met up with him for lunch. And he's like, oh, what are you having for lunch? He's like, oh, just brown rice and veggies. I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, guys hang out at the lot. I'm going to go for a run. And like every day he goes for a 2-mile run as lunch break. And then goes back to work. And I thought it was just so bizarre. But now that I'm older, I finally realize, and also, when I'm out on the road, and you've probably experienced this, you eat like crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you eat some good food, but you also eat like some 7-Eleven, beef jerky, whatever you could find. Your sleep patterns are totally off. And when you're young, like that's great. You're like, oh, you feel invincible.
Right.
But the reality is that catches up to you.
Oh yeah. Most
and
definitely.
And when you're out on the road 11 months out of the year and you're just not taking care of your body, you don't work out. That definitely shortens your lifespan in this career. And so, one of the things that I could say is listen to your body. Get proper rest, get the proper fuel in you. The people who have been doing this forever, who are now into their 60s or 70s and are still touring, at one point in their life had to have had that kind of wake up call where it's like, I can't move forward. I can't continue if I don't actually take care of my physical health.
Yeah, that's good. You mixed the audio for this podcast episode, but it was for Gary Vitti.
Oh yeah,
and Gary Vitti, if you guys don't know, he was the head athletic trainer for the Lakers for the last 20 years. I mean, he was with Shaq, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Kobe. He was indeed there the day, if you're a Laker fan, when Kobe tore his Achilles. And one of his things, he talks about how important health is, right? And centering, like, if you're not fit, if you're not healthy and you don't feel well, you're not going to want to serve anyone or be with around other people because you don't feel 100%. Now I find myself drinking 32-ounce alkaline, 9.5 from Kirkland,
pH level.
Yeah, pH level from Costco. Even if I have to eat a small snack in the morning before, sometimes, bro, these are long days. You start at 8 in the morning, you're not done till 8 at night, or sometimes 10 or 11 in the evening. So prioritizing your health is one of the best decisions and investments that you can make for yourself, because in long term, you want to be available to do work, and serve and give your gift to people. But you can't do that if you physically aren't 100%, and so Chad touching on this subject is so important. Even if you don't hear it from other people, make sure, if you're young, man, like, I get it. Metabolism's fast. You can move. Your body's not sore. Your back's not hurting. But as soon as you hit 30, man, we've been feeling it, trust. So it's like, okay, what can we do? What can we adjust? The last couple of weeks, I've been doing some spinal decompression sessions. Believe it or not.
That's a big word.
Yeah. So essentially, they lay you on this table and they strap you like a baby with like this pamper-looking like device, and this machine slowly pulls your back or your spine while you're laying down. And so, and I've had to do this because, this year has been a lot of traveling, a lot of commuting and all this stuff. And it's been affecting my lower back. So I'm like, man, you know what? No, I'm not going to let this progress and get worse, And so it's like stretching, hydrating, eating properly, making sure that, you get, if you get those opportunities, make sure you follow up. It's very important. Yeah.
That's great. Moving on to another key in longevity, you want to talk about building bridges instead of burning bridges.
Mm-hmm. It's such an important aspect because when you start your career musically, you're starting here, you don't know much, right? You have an instructor, you have some type of like, master or teacher of some sort, that's showing you the ropes, man. Take advantage of that. If you're learning how to play drums or bass or producing, for example, you want to listen to those. And along with that comes a lot of constructive criticism along the way. It's important to make sure that you have tough skin. The music industry is filled with people that sometimes are ruthless, and you got to be able to take the criticism, the good and the bad, and deal with it accordingly. Don't get offended. Don't get discouraged. Hey, you know what? It might have slowed me down here, but you know what? I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm going to keep progressing in my career because I know this was what I was called to do. This is my passion. This is my calling. So building those bridges with people sometimes that you might not like, but that they're teaching you what you need to know. I don't know. Have you ever had that experience where you were learning something with someone that you didn't like?
Oh, absolutely.
How'd you deal with that?
Yeah, well, first of all, they pissed me off.
Well, yeah.
Actually, I think those are some of the people that you actually should be really thankful for because they actually give it to you straight. And again, when you're talking about growth, wanting to be better, wanting to better yourself, when somebody can actually point out your faults, a lot of the times we obviously take offense to that, but we don't see it as constructive criticism, because of pride or whatever, especially when it's coming from somebody who's like lower than you. You might look at somebody like, well, you haven't played for anyone big, or you don't have credits to your name. A lot of the times, and this is one of the things that's really important, is to to understand and know where your ego is. Yeah. Because you can always learn something from someone.
Oh, definitely.
And that's another key to longevity is never stop learning. Yeah. And it just doesn't mean you learn from the people who you aspire to be. Yeah. But a lot of the times, I was listening to Rodney Jerkins, Dark Child, who's an unbelievable producer, Destiny's Child, Justin Bieber, like all the tops. And he says the key to his longevity, because he's now, probably in his 40s or 50s, is he listens and he gives the young generation a chance.
Oh, that's good.
This guy probably has one of the most Grammys ever, top hits, and yet he's still constantly learning. Yeah. And not just from people that he looks up to, but for people who might be looking to him as a mentor. Right. You can always learn something from someone.
Yeah. Again, I think, Chad and I, we always share ideas whenever we meet up. We always talk about what's going on, and sometimes he'll suggest things, that I can do musically that will fit the song when we've tracked or recorded some things. He's like, hey man, can you do this fill here? Can you set us up for this next section? Maybe I'm not doing it as well as I'd like to, and so he comes in and he's like, here's an idea, and so I always, anytime we're tracking it, just as an example for you guys, Chad, what kind of fill would you do here? Because I know he can play. And even if I knew he couldn't play, I would still ask because he's the one in charge of the session. You give respect where respect is due, and you want to make sure that when you're dealing with music directors or people that are above you, that you show them that respect. You don't want to act like you know it all. You don't want to act like you're superior to them because obviously they're employing you for a reason. And even if you are better than them, don't ever show that. Just be humble, be approachable, be able to take constructive criticism and also be able to take the hard criticism that at times you'll get, doing music. Because not everybody is going to like the way you play. Not everybody likes the way you sound musically. But hey, man, you're not here to fit everybody. Right. You got to know what you're good at and what you know that, hey, man, I do this well. No matter what anybody else says, that's where the stubbornness comes out. But you don't want to show that pride or that ego like I'm better than you, because I've done this or I've done that. It's always about humility. It's always about making sure that you make people feel as comfortable as possible. How important do you think collaborating with other individuals is?
I mean, if there's a key to longevity, it has to be collaboration over competition.
Yeah.
This is an idea that, and I don't know if it comes from our pride or ego or something, but, it seems to me that there's a competition, especially among drummers, especially with social media. You hear all the chops going all over the place and, the sheds, right? The drum sheds, like you chop up, then I'll chop up, then I'll go above you. You go up. And, it just seems like there's this competition when the mentality should be collaboration. Yeah. Because the reality is, we're not always going to be in our primes to maybe take that pop gig.
Right.
There's a lot of different factors other than just your skill. There's the look, there's do you fit the age? Do you, there's all these other things. And the reality is when you start collaborating and you have the mentality of collaboration, you really set yourself up for the future.
That's good.
And what I mean by that is, you don't even need to be playing the gig to still be in this music industry.
Yeah.
And collaborators and also people who build bridges or build those connections is really one of those people, is one of the types of people that has longevity in this music industry.
Yeah.
For example, there could be a gig coming up, and because I know, say, 8 or 9 different drummers, in my head, I'm already thinking who's going to be the perfect one for this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can be like, okay, Kevin's perfect for this. But then, maybe the other Kevin is perfect for this. And I could have been perfect for it too. But, if I see the bigger picture and be like, you know what, I'm going to put my pride away.
Yeah.
And I want to help, because I know that I've got another gig coming up or I know that I can actually help the person who's looking for the drummer. I'm now building that connection.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I'm actually helping that person with a solution.
Yeah.
And when you can be the person who can come up with solutions, and it doesn't even have to be you, you're now winning for that person you're giving the gig to. You're winning for yourself because you help them out with a solution. And now you just hopefully form this new connection between you and the person who's needing a drummer.
Yeah.
So I think the earlier that you could get that in your career, especially if you're up and coming and you might not have all the skill set there or all the experience there, but because of your network and who you have close relationships to, if you're always looking out for somebody else, and there's that saying that they say, like, you want to be around people who say your name even when you're not around, or they say your name in a room when you're not around.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of relationships that you want to form here. And that's really going to create longevity in this industry because you're always looking out for somebody else. And that always is going to come back, in good return to you because you're always trying to help somebody else.
Yeah. It's funny because I find myself a lot of the times, man, when I can't make certain corporate gigs, for example, I will always try to recommend somebody else that I know can do the gig.
Yeah,
right?
You're really good at this.
And how many times I've hit you up for even church stuff or, be it, hey man, there's this, especially Kenyan churches. I don't know why they always reach out and be like, hey, we need a keyboard player or a bassist, and MD situation, whatever. So I always try to keep that bridge open, and recommend people. And by the way, recommend people that are going to make you look good.
Right.
Don't recommend people that you know end up showing up late, come unprepared. They forget stuff, like they just don't never learn the music. You don't want to recommend those people, and sometimes those are our own friends, which is the very, you know, it's one of the saddest things, because you want to recommend those that, you know, like you're homies with, or that you have grown up doing music with. But unfortunately, not everybody takes it as seriously, and at times, you know, you for the sake of your friendship with them, you don't want to lose that personal friendship. You sometimes have to skip that person and move on to the next person you might not know as well, but at least that person, you know, will come prepared, you know, is going to make you look well, you know, in front of the people that you're recommending them to. But we appreciate you guys checking out episode 3. Remember, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next week.